story. I feel really excited.
Welcome to Unjustified, where we always cover the truth, the facts, the good, the bad, the ugly, on an unbiased and sometimes very unpopular opinion. If you're not already a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe now and hit the notification bell, and that way you will receive all of our upcoming videos. Thank you so much for being here, and we do hope you enjoy today's video. On April 11th, 2003, 51-year-old serial killer Leonard Fraser was being tried for 6 murders. Then the trial took an extreme turn of events when a very unexpected surprise witness showed up. This witness being one of the murdered women herself. It had been almost 5 years since 14-year-old Natasha Ryan's family or friends had seen or heard from her in 1998. After 3 years of not a word or trace, her family believed that she was dead, and on Natasha's 17th birthday in 2001, they held a memorial service for her.
At the moment, I don't trust her. She's got to regain that trust. As for forgiving her, I probably could forgive but never forget. That hurt me the most would be running away that day. Like, last time I seen Natasha prior to this, I dropped her off at school. She leant over, she gave me a kiss and said, "I love you." If a person loved you so much, how could they put you through that much pain?
Well, Natasha's parents, Robert and Jennifer, were divorced. Her father had remarried, and Natasha had even stood in as a bridesmaid for Debbie, her stepmother. Natasha was a bit of a disturbed teen. It is reported that she experimented with drugs, she lied about being pregnant, and had even attempted to take her own life. On July the 12th, 1998, Natasha took the family dog out for a walk, but she did not return. Her family reported her missing, and some days later she was found at the Rockhampton Music Bowl. Natasha's 21-year-old boyfriend, Scott Black, was charged with abduction and obstruction into the investigation of Natasha's disappearance. Scott paid a $1,000 fine and he was released. Then on August the 31st, 1998, she disappeared again. Authorities just assumed this time that she had run away and she would return soon enough. Witnesses that were spoken to during the investigation reported seeing Natasha standing outside a theater talking to an older guy and smoking a cigarette. These reports supported the authorities' assumptions that she had indeed run away. And with the police now growing even more concerned over her disappearance due to the murders of other young women in the Rockhampton area that happened during the same time frame, which ramped up speculations that Natasha was also a victim of the serial killer. Natasha's mother said, quote, "I don't believe she would let me go through all this pain if she was out there." End quote. Police decided that they should go ahead and bring her disappearance to the public attention, as well as helping more than 100 local state emergency volunteers in an extensive search for Natasha. They ultimately found no trace whatsoever of the then 16-year-old girl. After her family had held a memorial service in May of 2001, all hope by then had been lost that Natasha was still alive. Serial killer Leonard Fraser was eventually charged for the murders of 9-year-old Kara Stenhart, 14-year-old Natasha Ryan, 36-year-old Beverly Lego, and 19-year-old Sylvia Benedetti, 39-year-old Julia Turning. All of these women went missing, with the exception of 9-year-old Kara, who had went missing a year before. All of the bodies of the latter victims were also found, except that of Natasha Ryan. Leonard cut a deal with the police to keep himself out of the general population in prison, for being in general population would definitely not be safe for him. The deal was that he would confess to the murders of all 6 women, most of these being between 1998 and 1999. One of these women was Natasha Ryan.
Charged this man, an alleged serial killer called Leonard Fraser, with her murder.
Fraser confessed to murdering Natasha Ryan, testifying that he had met her outside a theater where he attacked her, and he said, quote, "Well, I hit Natasha and she was unconscious, so I drove her to the showgrounds and that's where I murdered her. Then I took her body out to Pink Lily Pond near the airport," end quote. Police never recovered her body. After this deal between Fraser and the police was revealed, and it was learned that the police had given Fraser the information to make his confession believable to the public and the judge, legal experts now fear for the value of police evidence in cases where a victim's body has not been found, even with a confession. Several weeks before Fraser's trial was to begin, a call came into the kids' helpline from a female claiming to be a runaway named Sally, going on to say that she was living with her boyfriend, but she had just heard that a man was being tried for her murder.
Said that I left home and that I was living with somebody and that somebody had been charged with the murder, and that I was incredibly scared to go back home and that I wanted to go back home and I wasn't sure how.
She then went on to send a letter to the police without signing it. She wrote in this letter that Natasha Ryan was still alive, and she also provided Natasha's alleged telephone number. Police tracked the phone number provided in the unsigned letter to Scott Brown's residence, where they planned and executed a raid. Natasha Ryan was found hiding in a bedroom closet.
Where were you?
I was sitting down there. I didn't say anything. I was just shaking.
Natasha had been living a reclusive life with her boyfriend Scott Black for the past 5 years, moving from one location to the other between Rockhampton and Yeppoon. Natasha spent most of her days hiding inside a cupboard. She only walked around inside the house late at night and when the blinds were shut tight. She spent most all of her time surfing the internet, reading, sewing, and cooking. Scott and Natasha went to extreme measures to keep her whereabouts a total secret from the world for almost 5 years. She had only gone outside 6 times during this time frame, and then it was only in the very darkest parts of the night. Her clothing was never hung outside to dry with the rest of the home's laundry. She even made her own sanitary pads using bath towels, so Scott would not have any sort of suspicions from him having to purchase them. Whenever Scott had a visitor or family member to come over, Natasha would hide in the cupboards and closet. During this entire span of her disappearance, she always lived within a few miles of her mother's home. Natasha told police that she had thought about returning home early on, but the lie became just too big. She went on to make it very clear that she never wanted to be found and she did not want to go with the police when they found her.
I just felt angry at everybody and everything. I didn't want to be at school, I didn't want to be at home, I didn't want to be there in that life.
When asked why she ran away from home, Natasha said, quote, "I know why I left. I'm not sure if my mom and sister completely know all of the reasons though. And I'm not even sure if it would make any difference now to even tell them why I left. I feel like anything I said now wouldn't be good enough for all of the pain that I have caused my family."
And cuddle her and ground her.
And ground her? How long will she be grounded for?
The rest of her life.
Natasha's entire family was traumatized by this discovery. The family lawyer says that Jennifer, Natasha's mother, was in complete shock upon learning that she was still alive, adding that the family had accepted that Natasha was dead and they had even held a memorial service for her on her 17th birthday.
I'd just like to know why. I don't feel that there was anything that could not be sorted out. And I didn't realise that she was in the state she was in when she did run away. I just didn't want to see her. I honestly didn't. I hated her. I could have grabbed her and just shook the hell out of her. But when I seen her, you forget all that, you know. And she looked at me and she just said to me, "I'm sorry," you know. And she had tears rolling down her eyes.
Natasha's father, Robert, was pulled from the courtroom during the trial and asked to take a phone call. There was a lady on the telephone claiming to be Natasha, and they needed him to verify that it was indeed her. When Robert took the phone, he asked the lady a question that he knew, if this was indeed his daughter on the line, that she could answer. So he asked what Natasha's nickname was that he had always called her. The girl on the other end of the phone whispered back, "I love you, Daddy. It's Grasshopper." And it was at that moment that Robert almost collapsed. There was no denying the girl on the other end of the call was indeed his daughter Natasha. Very emotional and crying, Robert stated, quote, "I would visit my beautiful daughter's grave never knowing what happened to her," end quote. Prosecutor Paul Rutledge was notified that Robert had positively identified his daughter via the question on the phone call, and that Natasha Ryan was absolutely alive. Paul Rutledge rose in the courtroom the shocking news that the charge of murdering Natasha Ryan, now 18 years old, would immediately be dropped against Leonard Frazier. And he added, quote, "I am pleased to inform the court that Leonard Frazier is not guilty of the murder of Natasha Ryan. Natasha Ryan is still alive," end quote. Natasha told a reporter that she was to blame, not Scott, speaking about the charges that Scott landed in 1998 for abduction and obstructing in her disappearance. Natasha said, "It was my fault he did that. It was my decision to run away. Scott was protecting me, and I felt like I should have been or deserved to be punished."
Natasha had arranged for her boyfriend Scott to pick her up here. It was her last moment of freedom for nearly 5 years.
The fact that I wish I could turn back to this day and change it.
So you were a runaway, you weren't a captive.
Yeah.
But psychologically, did you accept that maybe he had control over you?
No.
So you wanted to be there,
I did.
and you wanted to live that way.
I did.
Natasha and Scott profited massively from the media frenzy and all of the hype that was sparked by her story. Local and international media outlets paid her hundreds of thousands of dollars for exclusives to her story and photos. Meanwhile, the authorities only recovered a very small fraction of the tax dollars that were spent on the search, rescue, and investigating her alleged murder.
There's certainly been a massive waste of community resources, and it's one of these things that need not have happened. The whole thing, I believe, should have been stopped a lot sooner than it was. She could have come forward a lot sooner.
Amongst the contracts that were signed, Scott and Natasha signed a $120,000 contract with the media company PBL for exclusive rights to their story. Natasha was charged with causing a false investigation, and she was fined $1,000 with no jail time to serve.
Really scared of that I would have been sent to prison. I thought that I would have been sent away either to prison or to...
Scott was arrested for perjury after he gave evidence at Frazier's 2002 committal hearing, stating that he had not heard from Natasha since her disappearance. And for this, he was sentenced to 3 years in jail, which he served 12 months of. He was also ordered to pay $16,000 towards the cost of the investigation. When he was released and the two were at home, Natasha said that she was caught totally off guard when Scott pulled out a ring and asked her to marry him.
Would you like to be married to Scott?
I would think so, yes. One day.
Adding that her emotions were just overwhelming, and she of course said yes. In 2008, when Natasha was 24 and Scott was 31, they were married in a small ceremony. There was only 35 guests in attendance, all of these which were close family and friends. Woman's Day magazine reportedly paid Scott and Natasha $200,000 for exclusive rights to their wedding photo and prohibited any guests from taking photos while at their event. Natasha's mother, Jennifer, spoke at the wedding, saying that this wedding gives Natasha the opportunity to start afresh.
And still to this day, you pinch yourself to see whether it's real. I still don't believe it.
Today, Natasha Ryan is 39 years old, and she goes by Tasha Black. She works as a nurse after completing the nursing program at Central Queensland University, and she and Scott are the parents of 3 children. They live a very private and secretive life. Tasha has vowed that she would never reveal the reason that she ran away.
I could imagine what they were going through. I couldn't feel what they were going through, but seeing now what they have gone through, I can't believe that I'm sorry.
It's okay. So,
it was hard to be away from my family that long. It was hard to be secluded that long. No, it wasn't all bad. No. We made a home. We made our own little home, and we were happy.
Most recent appearance in the media was in 2011 when they stood before a magistrate's court in Rockhampton. This was due to a neighbor calling the police to their home after overhearing the couple arguing loudly inside. Upon arrival, police report that Scott Black refused to be given a breathalyzer test. Scott's attorney argued that he had indeed been drinking heavily and his judgment was affected. He went on to state that his client was frustrated because he had recently lost his job as a delivery driver and his license had been suspended. In 2001, Natasha's brother, Jason Ryan, stood trial for domestic violence. Jason was only a toddler when Natasha vanished, and he was 6 years old when she was located. Jason's trial caused Natasha's story to be resurfaced. Jason allegedly assaulted his pregnant wife and child numerous times between 2017 and 2020. He pleaded guilty to 14 counts of domestic violence. During Jason's trial, his attorney, Nick Larder, told the court that Jason suffered from family trauma and he had never received counseling to deal with this. Part of that trauma did stem from Natasha Ryan's disappearance, and that Jason coped poorly with the media attention frenzy that surrounded his sister's reemergence. At Jason's sentencing, the judge described his conduct to his wife and child as disgraceful. Jason was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Now, today, 25 years after Natasha's disappearance, there are no social media profiles or pages made by Natasha or Scott Black. There have been no more newspaper stories or magazine deals made by them. It seems that Natasha and Scott have backed away from the spotlight and created new lives without using the girl in the cupboard label that they profited off of for so long.
Okay. I feel free.
I'd pick up the phone to call them, but I couldn't speak to them. It's just gutless.
you're gutless.
Put it into words, you know, like every day you're thinking about that person, wondering what they'd be doing today, you know, how they would look today. People say time, you know, time heals, but in this case, time never healed anything. The longer it got, the worse it got.
And as for Leonard Fraser, he was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of 9-year-old Kara in 2000. Later, he was sentenced to 3 more consecutive prison terms in 2003. He died in 2007 of a heart attack.
I do believe I deserve to go to jail. I do not want to go to jail, but I do deserve it. I do deserve to be severely punished for what I've done.
I don't want charges brought against my daughter. However, if that's what she has to do, I don't want another 2 years of her life in jail. because of the stupid mistake she made when she was 40.
Thank you so much for watching, and do not forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave us a comment below on your thoughts of this video. And until next time, this is UnJustified.